Hi everyone! I thought this was a good opportunity to make a video so that I can talk to you guys about the things that happened and everything that I learned on the first day of event for InMotion. So the first talk was by Erwin van der Rijssel from Nexus Studios. They made the title sequence for this year's event, and he basically broke down the steps that they went through to make the title sequence. So he showed a mood board of scenes, styles, and typography that they wanted to emulate in their work. And then he showed a storyboard animatic where it's just actually grid lines. It's very rough, it's very simple. It's just grid lines animating forward to show the pacing and the timing of the sequence. He also broke down parts of the titles that use hand-drawn keyframe animation, 3D motion, and particles. So yeah, it was truly a collaborative process of all of the designers, directors, and artists that made the whole title sequence. He also talked about thinking of design over technique, meaning to not overthink the techniques being used and to use whatever is on hand and is realistic for the design to work. He made an example of a part of their work where they used 3D to visualize breaking a chain link fence and turning it into a forest. But then they had to finish the lines of the chain link fence in a certain way to match the next scene of the forest. So they ended up using 2D lines instead directly in After Effects. He also showed examples like the titles from the film Catch Me If You Can, where they used digital motion design and traditional line of print frame by frame animation to get the authentic texture of the print. And also the titles for The Lord of the Rings, where they filmed sand movement but also added 3D visual effects on top of it for the final look. He also showed the titles of the house, but I don't remember what he said about it, but I will just show you so that you can see how good it is. He also mentioned working on the visuals and the sounds at the same time. He mentioned it really depends on the brief and on the situation of the design work. He also showed behind the scenes footage of the people who are playing the instruments and the recording of the sound effects. So to illustrate his next point of designing every detail, he showed details from their own title sequence as well as an example from BBC's Welcome to the City of Love and also the Telstra's Apple Clock ads. For their title sequence, he showed little things like a person chasing after a dog or the scribbles on the crossword puzzles that's constantly changing. And even the music notes, they actually animated that frame by hand, but then it only shows up for 4 frames only on screen. So it really has that attention to detail for every frame, every sequence, every style that they use. Even though it only shows up for a few frames, it's there. It's also very interesting to see some behind the scenes footage and edit of the designer for the Apple Clock ad where he was acting the role of the 3D character and then he would edit himself on top of the 3D character as a visualization of the concept. It was a treat seeing all of the love for different techniques and details that all these creative individuals poured into their work. I actually had a chat with Erwin last year about exactly this. Spending time as a singular person, spending time on too many different things that I don't really end up being an expert in just one of them. And as an artist, I always feel that pressure to choose a certain craft or focus to be an expert in, to be really good at. He put my anxiety at ease and he validated my experience because he was the same way and he said that there is value in learning from different sources or crafts mediums and that they will come in handy in the projects that I get to do in the future, even if I don't become an expert in any one of them. I went up to him again this year after his talk to say my thanks, and I teared up. He teared up, and I made it unnecessarily emotional. But I was super happy to have a chance to talk to him and say how confident he had made me feel in being a kind of chaotic creative mess. Anyway, afterwards, I walked around the booths, met up with Pallavi, and we went to the next few sessions together. We sat down to 2 live demos. The first one was by Juan P. Arroyo from the Line Animation Studio, and he demoed a frame-by-frame animation. And the second one was by Lowish, an independent artist. I actually I'm familiar with Loish's work. I see it all the time. And I didn't realize how mistaken I was with how she does her work. She used the lasso tool with or without the feather. She would use the gradient tool, using saturations, color balance, blend modes. I realized seeing her do her work live in front of me that I'm making things really complicated for myself, because I think that whenever I do my digital illustrations, it should simulate my traditional painting techniques really closely, and I think that's just making it harder for myself. I also got to see some books, which I regret not buying at this point. I found this great artist called Gretel Lusky and her book Wayfinder, which is so beautiful with the hollow side effect. I spent so much time the night of Thursday just perusing her website and all her works. And I also saw this book that I've been meaning to get for a few weeks now, Color and Light, from the Artist Master series. I'll get them next time. Okay, so at this point, Palavia's gone home, so I went to see the K-pop Demon Hunters screening, the sing-along one, on my own. And even though I was alone, I had such a great time because everyone else in the crowd was so loud and so active with the singing parts. And so I sang, shimmied my shoulders, and bawled my eyes out at the end. It was fun. And then Chris and Maggie, the directors of the film, came up on stage afterwards to answer some questions. And honestly, I think the questions were so repetitive that at this point, there's a lot of videos online that shows more of the process and more information of how they made the film. So to close the night, I attended the last talk, which is by Patrick McHale and Pendleton Ward, the creators of Adventure Time. And it surprised me a little bit because they were so unserious with their talk, but they were also able to hold the attention of their audience for the whole time. Penn was animating a simple frame-by-frame animation while Patrick was going through different topics, going through pages, handwritten pages, with the camera pointing on the table. I thought that was an interesting way of presenting whatever they had to present at that time. Pat talked about making 10-minute picture books, dedicating 3 hours to poetry time, and other different ways to engage your creativity and push ourselves to actually do creative things. One thing that I got from Maggie and Penn was that they both mentioned saying yes to commitments. Like when they are asked if they have ideas, they would say yes even though they didn't have it at the time. And then they would commit to the deadline and make it up as they go. And also, essentially, they both lied, but they still made it work. And I'm just learning how to lie more effectively, so that's another thing as well. So that's day 1 of InMotion. I hope you got something out of this. I thought that the video would really encapsulate the energy that I got from the event. Kept me up until 2:30 the night of the event. It kept me distracted the next morning, and I was just so full of energy and I couldn't do anything, and I felt like I was gonna explode from the inside. And now I'm channeling this energy onto you. It's the energy to keep creating and to keep sharing our work and to keep connecting with fellow creatives, artists, designers, animators, directors, and anyone who has the love for art and design. Thank you!